Good morning and welcome to the TMS Book Club. I'm your host, Sewela Langeni from Book Circle Capital. We're an independent bookshop that focuses on African literature, and today is my honor and privilege to have Moshitadi Lehlomela, author of The Girl Who Survived Her Mother. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Fatherlessness is something common in South Africa, but it's very rare where we ever hear where children are surviving mother wounds.
Yeah.
How important was it for you to tell the story?
It was very important simply because it's my story and it's part of my healing.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've just gotten to a point where we have to talk about it if we are going to heal as a collective, because we can't ignore that part of our wound, which is also very deep.
Yeah.
And also, you're right, there's, fatherlessness that is common in South Africa.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when it comes to mothers, we think about how they struggled
Yes.
to stay, how they were, not taken care of by our fathers, how they went through so much trauma themselves. And we feel sorry for them. So whatever happens in that relationship that is harmful,
they're almost untouchable.
We tend to, perhaps I should keep quiet about that and consider all these other things that she went through.
Yeah.
Also because we want to believe that our mothers love us.
Yeah.
So we have to come up with, explanations on why they do what they do, and perhaps even justify to stay in those relationships.
First when I saw this, I was touched. I was like, the girl who survived her mother.
Yeah.
Her mother. Because in our minds, we don't ever imagine that somebody would have to survive a mother. A father, yes.
Yeah.
And I guess you get this a lot, right?
I do. Actually, just a few days ago, my younger sister went to a bookstore in Durban and she picks up my book, and a guy says to her, you relate? And she goes, this is my sister's book. And he's like, no, she can't say that about, mothers. It's an African and all of that.
Wow.
And I was like to her, I get that a lot.
Yeah.
I get that on social media. I get that in real life where
But
people
it's your
go.
story.
And I think that's why the mother wound sort of just thrives in the background, because we are prone to silence about our relationships with our mothers, and oftentimes it's very harmful in those relationships. And a lot of people, I'm realizing now as I do the work, is that people want to talk.
In the book, you talk about this intergenerational trauma. What do you mean by that?
If trauma happens in the family, for instance, I am abused now, perhaps by a partner or whatever, that trauma needs to be processed somehow. That grief needs to be let out. And if I do not allow myself and I suppress that, then I'm going to project it onto my children. And children are, very easy victims. And if those children also do not process that trauma of having had a mother who had trauma, then it just continues and continues. And you can see it in the patterns in those families around how they cope with certain things, how they communicate, even through their health.
And you're encouraging us to break that.
Oh, yeah.
To question that and say no. One of the copings you talk about is disassociation.
Oh, yeah.
Something that you saw with your mother, you saw with your maholo, your grandmother in Sipiti.
Yeah.
Well, talk to us a bit about this. What is this disassociation?
Basically, it's just refusing to see what is happening in front of you because it's just too much, right? And if you read the book, my grandmother was an alcoholic.
Yes,
right?
I was about to say substance abuse becomes one of the ways.
And also when I became some sort of an adult, I also started drinking a lot, and I could realize that was continuing in my family. So I grew up in a family of women who just never allowed themselves to see what was happening, perhaps because they didn't have the tools to process what was happening to them. And we just grew up in an environment of denial, basically. We sweep things under the rug, pretend they do not happen or they did not happen to us, and try to continue with life. But it just builds up and builds up until one day you explode at someone.
How has it been received? I mean, it's a deeply personal story. How has the family received it?
I have not had any feedback from my family except my two younger sisters. We're like, oh my God, we're so glad you, because they have gone through pretty much. I got the worst hit of it because of firstborn daughter. But there's things that happen to them as well, because when a mother is not doing her own work, she will just continue the patterns with the next child and the next child, and it just continues. And those of my friends who've read it just are supportive and say, well, we understand you a bit more now.
Yeah,
right?
stuff that they never maybe got with you.
Right.
Now they understand.
Now we get it. We get you, and we are hoping that we are a safe space for you. But with strangers, I'm like, when they're like, oh, I read your book, I'm like, oh, don't ask me questions. Do not ask me questions. But yeah, I think it's been received well. At the book launch as well, there are people who say, I saw the title and I felt validated in that moment immediately, who came to say, well, just thank you for being so vulnerable and bringing the subject out into the open.
So you're a mother wounds coach.
Yes.
What does that entail? How do you help people?
My main thing is just teaching people how to reparent themselves, how to offer themselves what they could not get from their mothers.
Yeah.
Because what I understand about the mother wound is that there's sort of an underdevelopment that happens.
Yeah, something gets, you stop, you get stunted.
You get, exactly.
Yeah.
And you have to bring yourself, help yourself grow, basically. And that's what we do with the self-mothering care practice, which is my main course. And even in coaching, that's basically what I teach. And also your environment, how to make it so conducive to a point where it also sort of nurtures you and helps you develop. So
if we've got someone watching and they definitely can relate, how do they get help?
the first thing you want to do is talk to someone that will mirror your worth, that would validate you and say, well, I get it. You did not have to go through all of that. And that's where most people just need to start, because that's also part of that self-mothering, that you're getting someone that is offering you the I see you that you couldn't get from your mother. And then from there, you could teach yourself different techniques that I also teach around how to reparent yourself so that you can become your best self. That's all we want.
Thank you so much for writing this book. And another step, would be for people to get the book.
Oh, yes. Get the book, please.
And read the book. If you know somebody that could benefit from reading the book, get the book. And we hope that there'll be more coming from you, I'm sure, in your interactions with people.
Probably not another memoir, but I am just more dedicated to helping people have the tools. And I think that is the route I'll be taking from now on.
Thank you. You've been watching TMS Book Club. My name is Sewela Langeni. Thank you.